Greetings and welcome to Conversations with Tony Mobley. On Conversation with Tony Mobley, today we are having a conversation with Mr. George E. Kennedy Jr. Thank you so much, sir, for being here with me today.
Thank you, Tony.
This is episode 52. Do you know what that means? That means that Conversations with Tony Mobley, yes, that's right. Conversation with Tony Mobley has been on the air for 1 year. That's right. 1 year of Conversation with Tony Mobley. Yay! Thanks to everyone. Why are we here? We are here because life has provided me the opportunity to have real conversations with real people. First, I want to thank my guests for our conversation last week, Rabbi David Paskin, on episode 51. And I want to thank the team behind Conversations with Tony Mobley. So we are here to have real conversations. We hope to help others with these conversations, but I need your help. Yes, that's right. Here I go again. Register on conversationwithtonymobley.com. Why? Why do I want you to register? Because we have the Mukana chat. There, you can put your question in, and your question can be voted up and down. That's right. And so to ensure that you have an opportunity to ask your question, put it in early, and then get it voted on. And then we can make sure that your question get answered during our conversation tonight. If you like this and past conversations, we ask that you like and subscribe. We ask that you like and subscribe. And then once you've subscribed, set that bell to all notifications so that you can be reminded of upcoming conversations. And so now we are going to have our very first question from Mr. George E. Kennedy Jr. Who is George E. Kennedy Jr.?
So George E. Kennedy Jr., just a kid from Georgetown, Guyana, born into a fabulous family, a big Caribbean family. So navigating this thing called life and just trying to make the best of it.
Okay. Well, thank you, George, for that answer. And we're going to pull more out of George about who he is, because we know that he is a very special person, and we're going to get to know him a lot better during this conversation.
Well, I would have went on
So,
and on, but you let me know if you want me to really. I could dig a little deeper, but I wanted to keep it a little bit short for the opening. But let me just
well,
say, before we continue on, a big congratulations to you. I don't want to miss that. A big congratulations to you on your 1 year anniversary, and thank you for having me.
thank you, sir. And we had an earlier conversation, and I was saying we started a conversation with Tony Mobley with Dr. Hasmukh Gaijar from Cape Town, South Africa. And we are uh, having our anniversary conversation with Mr. George E. Kennedy, OGs both from Office Hours. So again, thank you so much, sir, for being here.
For sure.
Our next question is from Mr. Roscoe Jones of Berea, California. He says, what has been your toughest video production and what did you learn from it?
So in the height of the pandemic, I think it was in 2020, the January of 2021, I got a pretty hefty project and it was pretty huge, about 30 videos, and I decided that maybe I could do it all myself, and had some pretty quick turnarounds every day, and it really burned me out to the point where you just that point where you feel I don't know what dying is like, but you feel like it. What I've learned from that and just from being learning over in office hours is don't try to do things on your own. Find great folks. Obviously, the community office hours was just getting up and running, but find folks to help you with your projects. Don't try to do it all by yourself, because you're gonna find yourself burnt out and not being able to make those deadlines. So my toughest project was taking on an editing job, and it was a big project plus an event. But don't try to take on everything on your own. Find folks to help you.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. Roscoe is back again and he says, what is your favorite type of project to work on?
So I dance in between two worlds, which is a live event world and production. I would say on the production side, I love documentaries. I love that whole storytelling aspect of people's lives or a subject matter. On the live event side, I'm a big fan of opera and live concerts in general. So I would say those two documentary, concerts, especially opera. I love the opera.
Fantastic. Thank you, sir. Oh, Roscoe's back again. Roscoe says, to what do you credit your success and what has been the biggest challenge you have had to overcome?
So credit my success. I think I'll go back to when you asked the initial question, who's George Kennedy? So I was born in Guyana, came to the US in 1983, spent my elementary, junior high school years in the DC area, moved to New York, went to high school there, went on to the Navy. I think the Navy pretty much prepped me for where I am in life right now as far as my work ethic. So I would say the Navy, then college, those two things really prepped me for being having the work ethics I have right now and being able to overcome those adversity, because in the military life is all about overcoming. You prep for a situation and you have to execute it. So not necessarily it goes bad, but in some aspects of you have to overcome it. So it has allowed me to, when things happen in life now, to really try to execute it and move on right away and not dwell too much on it.
Very cool. Thank you, sir, for sharing that. We have Dr. Chris Clark from Tempe, Arizona coming in. And he says, George, I see that you were in the Navy. Tell us a sea story. And what did you learn from your Navy time that still serves you well today?
Boy, you don't want to hear my sea stories. I I think I think traveling to Israel, Turkey, what you call the East Pack. So there's the West Coast sailors and then there's the East Coast sailors. So when you go east, you go the way of Turkey, Israel, Bahrain. So being able to travel to all those different places, it gives you a different aspect of life, to see how people live. Being from the Caribbean, obviously, and going somewhere else other than, where I was born and the US, it opens your eyes to different cultures and so forth. And being able to, I think going to Israel really, opened my eyes to that culture and being able to see places where Jesus Christ walked, per se. So I think that was one of the highlights. Traveling to the Suez Canal and so forth. So those little places touching it, there's other stories that I would, it'll take forever to go on to, but I would say traveling the world. How has it served me well? Now, again, like I mentioned in the last question, is the ethics of the military. Being able to, I'm kind of a order oriented person. I never like to do things on my own. I execute it, and if I see there's a problem generating, I'll try to fend it off. But I'm a definitely chain of command person, and we talked a lot about that in office hours. Being able to, on a job, instead of trying to do things outside the pocket and do things on your own, you got to follow a chain of command. So I would say the military served me well in that sense. Being able to follow a chain of command in anything that I do, I'm hired to do, or outside of my scope.
Very cool. Thank you, sir, for that. I also want to say thank you for your service. Um, what was something in your service with the Navy that got you on this path?
Oh, on the path to production. Um, in high school, I was my high school photographer, and I definitely continue on doing that. And while I was in the Navy, I always carried a camera, so I somewhat knew the Navy was a transition point for me. I knew that my parents wouldn't be able to afford to send me to college, so that was the GI Bill was a way for me to get to college. So I always knew high school. I was a school photographer, and I loved that part of it. I continued doing a little bit of it while I was in the Navy. So once I left the Navy, I went straight to college. So I would say the Navy helped me to stay on the path, or I knew what I wanted to do, so it was in and out the Navy. So I would say I just kept on my path while I'm in the Navy by still capturing the moments wherever I went.
Thank you for that answer. And again, I want to say thank you for your service.
Appreciate that, Joey.
Roscoe is back again. Roscoe Jones of Berea, California. Who has been the most interesting person you have been able to work with or do a documentary about? And what made them so interesting?
I haven't worked necessarily with any major figures on documentaries. I had a chance to go to South Africa for the World Conference on Race, and I actually shot a documentary for that. So I think is being able to again travel to South Africa and capture images of folks from around the world. That was probably one of the highlights of my earlier days in video production. So I would say that part of the documentary factor. I haven't really done any major stuff, but I just love the idea of storytelling and being able to capture live stories. So Roscoe, I wouldn't say I've done any major documentary pieces, but it's more of documenting events in and around the area in DC and around the globe.
I was just curious, how long ago was
South
that
Africa.
documentary? Yes,
South Africa now was about 10 years ago, but there's some things in life that you do that will leave a stamp on you. Traveling to South Africa was definitely one of the highlights, and that was after my Navy days. So being able to leave the Navy and still continue to travel far away from the U.S., I think everyone should experience it.
very cool. Thank you, sir. What are some of the things that your parent taught you that you're currently using today?
Oh, um, I would say my dad. My dad was such a perfectionist, and a creative in a sense, not necessarily creative as in media, but creative with his hands, and he had a good work ethic too, and just being able to perfectionist in a sense that he wanted things a certain way, and neat, organization oriented. So I think I got a lot of my traits from him, which is good that I could use that in my real world and real life now. I think about him a lot. He's no longer here with us, but I think definitely his way of he has a creative spirit, and I think I have that spirit also, and so does my son. So I think that's, I would say, my dad really instilled in me that creative spirit.
Very cool. Thank you, sir, for sharing that. What does your family think about what you're doing, your business?
um Obviously it sustained us all, but it's always great to have your support of your family in anything endeavor that you do, and it's good to see my son now is really starting to get interest into the whole media production world, whether it's gaming or what we do on the video production side. So they're very I would say supportive of everything that I do. I think for any of us that really work in this business, and you are married, it's great to have a spouse that really supports you, because it's not necessarily the most glorious business at times. So it's good to have someone to support you in it. And so I would say they love what I do, and sometimes I'm gone and sometimes I'm here. So when I'm here, obviously everyone is happy, but sometimes I'm gone for a long period of times. But so I would say that 100% support what I do.
Say that one more time, George. I'm sorry.
No, no, I was saying they support me 100%. So in what I do.
That's fantastic. That I know that is a powerful support system that you have to have been able to do it as long as you have been doing it. So that's amazing. Roscoe Jones is back again, and he says, "What lessons do you have to instill in your children to enable them to have the same success that you have had?
Well, I try to tell my son daily, be a good citizen. I can instill a whole lot. I mean, he's got that boy power, and your kids are gonna have. There's a difference between, I have a boy, just one son, but your girl children and boys are gonna have a certain. They're gonna have a different spirit. My son definitely has boy power, and he definitely has my personality, a lot of it. So I instill in him to try to be a good citizen. I don't want him to necessarily carry all of my traits towards it. You have to have your own, but just be a good citizen, and do the right thing, and you'll succeed in this life. Don't take shortcuts. That's my biggie with him. There's no shortcut. And I think, sometimes he's only 17 now, but you have to allow them. There's things at 17 he has seen that he's had to experience in the short period, that shortcuts are never going to get you to where you need to get to. So I tell him, be a good citizen and don't take shortcuts.
So tell me how, when you gave him that MacBook, what was your expectations that he would do with it?
Well, I expected him to. It's a tool for doing schoolwork, and he's very much interested in what we do, and I don't necessarily want him to follow, his path in media production, but he's getting pretty good at cutting in Final Cut. He just finished a project for school. I mean, I pretty much cut him loose. He just had a project that he finished for his Spanish class. So he was able to do it in English, and then translate it on screen in Spanish. So, and I just showed him a few things and then cut him loose on it. I think he got a 3.8 on it out of the 4.0. So, um, the MacBook Pro for any kid really. I mean, it's a tool. I mean, it's expensive, but I think now you're at a point where you have to kind of monitor what they do. But it's a tool. He's going to be in his senior year, so I think it's a tool that he really needed to start. Like I tell him, you're going to go off to college, but I want you to start dibbling and dabbling in different things, and that's a way of having him do that. He's going to be here home for a month before he starts a summer job, and there's a Marcus Brownlee MKB HD new project of master classes. I'm probably going to sign him up for that so he could actually do a media production course for the first month he's home. So, having a MacBook Pro allows him to do what he needs to do, and every other thing that he does on YouTube. So, that's what he's doing right now. Long question, long answer, and I'm sorry, but you asked the question.
Yeah, and I have a follow-up question. So
Sure.
what was the software that you made sure that he had on that MacBook Pro?
That MacBook Pro has all Apple software, including Logic. He's got Premiere Pro in there, but right now he's gravitated towards Final Cut, which is fine. So that's the tools that he's using. So all the Apple suite. Of course, he's got Discord in there. Who he loves gaming, so he has to have Discord. But he's got all the tools that he needs, and obviously the tools he needs for school also.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Roscoe Jones is back again. And he says, does your son have your personality lead to conflicts at times? How how do you resolve any conflicts with him or with clients you interact with?
He's got out of my personality. I think obviously you guys know me from office hours. There's times when I have to back down and just let him vent, or if he has a little moment, let him have it, because if both of you are headstrong up here, nothing is going to get resolved. So there's times when I have to just because we've got so much of the same personality, I'll let him not necessarily have his way, but we'll have a conversation, and I might be the one that's in the lower tone, but he knows his daddy, and he's taller than daddy right now, so I'll step on his toes and just stand on his toes, and let him know that I'm still daddy, But you have to let your kids, you have to give them a little bit of a room to vent sometimes, but not, he knows not to go too far, but definitely if you have kids and you have the same personality, you're gonna clash. So you want to make sure that you giving them their own little room to vent when they need to, but not become disrespectful.
I just want to take a pause here for just to say George is cutting through these questions very quickly. So if you are watching and listening, please add some more questions because George is getting through the questions very quickly.
I'll slow down,
Um,
Tony.
no, do your thing, man. I want you to do your thing. I want you to be comfortable and answer the questions. The questions are really only here so that we have something to talk about. So it's the questions are here to provide an outlet for us to have a conversation. And so I'm just asking them to, because I know that there are tons and tons of questions that are out there. And so I just want them to ask the questions. Um, let's see. What has office hours meant to you?
Oh boy, we could spend some time on this. So it's been 2 years now since office hours. Again, I was one of the OGs. Um, Office hours has meant everything to me, and I'm 53, and sometimes I know for I can only speak for myself. Sometimes we may not want to really express ourselves in. I'm not going to get emotional here, but in an emotional way. It's sustained me for 2 years, and I'm speaking for me, but I know I'm speaking for a whole lot of us. It was a sustainment for the 2 years. It was sustainment, educational, eye opening. I still don't think there's anything out there like office hours where you can communicate with folks from around the globe in a 2 hour span or 24 hours. You're in Discord, and there might be something that's populated in Discord, a Discord channel, and you might have 10 different folks responding to that. But there's 10 different folks responding from that from 10 different places around the world. So um office hours, being a military guy, being a guy that's been to college, it was another 2 year education for me being on office hours. It allowed me to grow in certain ways as far as my business, as far as just dealing with situations, just the education part of it. I think Alex has been really a big obviously the driving force behind it. I worked for him like once and then seen him a couple of times. So know him from the industry. But I think what he has done, and we all know it, it's a gem. I don't know that there's anything out there like it, and it's only grown. If you look at it now, you really there's nothing like it on television, on any YouTube shows. So office hours sustained me. If there's any big thing I could just say about it, it's sustainment for that 2 years, and I think about it every day. I don't want that to go away. Obviously, we all are back out now working. Whether we're doing hybrid or regular, but definitely I want to make sure I'm still connected to it. And hopefully that wasn't a long-winded answer.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't at all. I just want to add that, you know, DC and Atlanta are having a conversation right now
Hmm.
because of office hours.
Sure.
And I like you, it's hard for me to talk about a lot of what office hour means to me from the standpoint that I was going through cancer treatment when office hours started at the beginning of the pandemic. I was in the middle of my cancer treatment, and it was um, it was a shining moment for me in that I got a chance to focus on something other than my cancer when I started tuning into office hours. And so, Sunday I celebrated 2 years of ringing the bell. And that Thursday before, I'd gotten a PSA done, and my numbers were fantastic. And I'm just happy to be in this space. And a lot of, I'm celebrating 1 year of Conversation with Tony Mobley because I had an opportunity to participate in office hours. And quite frankly, uh, they they probably should not have let me participate based on the equipment that I had trying to engage with them. But they were patient with me, and they allowed me to participate and be a part of the community. And I learned so much. I'm continuing to learn, and I've had a wonderful and fantastic experience. And I think most importantly, it has helped me help the church that I'm associated with
Right.
in a
Uh,
major way. And, I started asking questions about how to help them. And it was office hours that gave me the answers.
But I
And
would
so,
say I wouldn't say that they wanna, shouldn't let you in with the equipment that you had. That was the whole premise of it. We all started out on office hours. I mean, I already was deep in the industry, but I've elevated my game also. I mean, I have a teleprompter in front of me, the PR40, the lights, So I would say that, we all began at the same stage, and now we have elevated our game as far as, our production value in our home spaces and beyond. I would say also, for the folks that is watching right now that have been on office hours, I traveled DC to Baltimore. I was just in Baltimore a couple of weeks ago, but 2 weeks ago, I one of the guys, I hadn't seen him in a while, and he said, "Hey man, I haven't seen you in office hours." So, it's kind of crazy to know that there's people that I know, they have been watching office hours, and not necessarily I invited them, but over the pandemic, folks heard about office hours. And I have folks that come into DC from other states to do jobs in the area, and they said, "Hey man, I saw you in office hours," or they say hey to me and say, "I don't, how did I know you? I've seen you in office hours during the pandemic." So, everyone that's been in office hours and has been there for a while have to know that, you were doing a good over the pandemic and continue to do good with what we all are doing.
well, thank you, George. I appreciate that. We have a question from Guy Cochran, Seattle. And this question is, have you seen the creative users group evolve over the years?
um the creative user groups have evolved over the years. I still, District Digital Creatives is still alive, which I run. I'm gonna be starting back the live streams here shortly. I think, I don't know if the user groups are going to come back as strong as we were before, because, we now have this medium, which is office hours and conversations with Tony Mobley. You know, I am going to come back to doing my live shows because I think is still a value for user groups. I don't know that those physical meetings are going to be able to be sustained over the next year, over the next couple of months. So, Guy, to answer your question, the user groups are definitely still relevant, but we have to find a new way of bringing them into the digital world. I don't know that the physical part of it is going to be able to be sustained, but I look forward to doing them again in person. So, user groups is the foundation of what we're doing now. So hopefully, we in some arena, the LA user group, the Boston user groups, they're able to come back in some way in the next couple of months.
Okay. Thank you, Guy, for your question. And I apologize, but it is storming here, raining hard, a lot of thunder, a lot of lightning. So I just want to make everyone aware that that's what's going on here. Um, I have gotten a question on my phone, and so I'm going. This is a. I'm not going to say his name, but this is a DC native that sent in a question to George, and he told me to ask you. He says, "Where is the go-to person in DC area for companies like Adobe, Blackmagic, and many others to make things happen for them, especially when they want to connect to DC video?"
Well, again, I haven't had a meeting since, well, obviously the pandemic. So Digital Creatives is the user group that I ran. So Adobe is one of my sponsors, Blackmagic. So we're going to definitely find a way to get that going again in the physical. obviously COVID is still a thing in the area, so definitely he can reach out to me. We and office hours has a big DMV community, and for those that don't know what DMV means, a DC, Maryland, Virginia community. So definitely reach out. I am gonna get a few folks together later on, maybe in August for a meetup. So definitely look out for that.
Okay, this person also says that how you have transformed into being one of the top areas people for helping to produce online events, from being a top editor, event camera person, producer, and all around great video person for live events and content creation, in addition to other things that he does, he is so great at.
Oh boy, I would love to know who that is. So here's the thing, right? The one claim I'm not gonna take is maybe I'm gonna say a few things. I edit because I have to, but I'm not an editor. So I think that's a very I've always said that in the realm that I'm in, because I run a user group, but I like to be specific about what I do. I edit, but I'm not an editor, first of all. So I'm also not a I'm a camera op. I'm not a cinematographer. So I just wanted to be clear with those few things. But I could do those things well. But I don't like to take titles. I'm a video creator, content creator. So I've been in this game for 30 years. And again, I think you asked me earlier tonight, Tony, about fear. So I think every job I step into has a little bit of fear in it, right? I mean, obviously, I know what I need to execute, but I think over the past almost 30 years, it's been fear. So, it's a very competitive environment. So, you have to stay on top of your game. There's a lot of folks out there that do things better than I do or do them well, but I always say to folks, you know what you know, and I know what I know, and I know how to execute what I do well. So, you know, I would say it's not about being one of the top notch folks in the DC area. It's just about keeping yourself relevant, and keeping yourself relevant means spending late nights up trying to learn, execute, and just keeping yourself out there. I mean, I don't really promote myself as, but folks always ask me like, well, you run a user group, you run distributed creative. Why don't you use it as your way to promote yourself? No, it's not what I got into it for. I didn't get on office hours to promote myself. It's about being all about the community, right? Same thing with the jobs that I do. I treat them as someone is hiring me to execute something. Go in and do it to your best ability. Work with teams that you love working with. I try to get on teams that I love working with because it makes my job so much easier. And that's what I want to say about that, really, Tony, is that, it's not about me being top notch. It's about making sure that I'm keeping up with the Joneses per se, to keep myself relevant. Office hours has definitely allowed me to expand my horizons into unbelievable things, including AWS, and we're still learning.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir, for sharing that with me. Um, um, I'll share with you who that person was at a later date. Um, but I want to say this, George, you are a role model for a lot of people, to do what you do, to have been doing it as long as you have. I think it's absolutely amazing. And I just wanted you to know that I appreciate you, and I thank you for doing the good quality work that you have been doing.
Appreciate that, Tony.
The next question is, how has your interaction with companies changed since COVID-19?
Oh boy. So we're back on the ground in the DC area and beyond, doing live events. I'm still wearing a mask. I try my best. I tell companies straight now, if I go on site, look, I We have 6 foot tables. I need to be separated. I think I think companies have a responsibility to try to still keep folks safe. I understand everything is relaxed. Um, I feel like I'm a little bit intense about protecting myself, but I'm all that I have right now. At 53, I have a responsibility to my family. It's either you're going to take the work or you're not. And my way of protecting myself is wearing a mask still, and asking companies when I go on site not to have me this close to folks on show site not wearing a mask. Um, Now I'm not gonna be able to always get around that. There's a lot of shows I've left in the past couple of weeks and got back home and my phone started pinging saying, "Hey, you've been exposed to X, Y, and Z." A lot of those companies have been folks that maybe came from overseas and that had shows in the DC area. So the relationships are back and they're good, but I think COVID is still a thing, and I hope that companies still continue to try to, instead of looking at the dollar amount, you really try to still protect your crew. So the relationships are there and the interactions are there, but I think a lot of folks are still taking it for granted, and we still having a lot of folks that are getting sick. So continue to wear your mask. I'm wearing mine, so I'm gonna continue to do that. So that's the answer to your question.
And I'm still wearing mine too.
Yep.
Uh, Dr. Clark is back. He says, what advice do you have for treating employees and temporary hires well so that they internalize your work ethic and are eager to continue working with you?
Oh boy, let me read that question again.
What advice do you have for treating employees and temporary hires well so that they internalize your work ethic and are eager to continue to work with you?
So I'm gonna dig a little bit deep into this one. So, Mr. Clark, I have to tell you, since being back out, it's a very strange place right now with after COVID. For those of you don't know, I run a small business, Magek Filmworks. I also still do contractual work as a freelancer. So, you know, I want to treat everyone, even the folks that I work with as a freelancer, treat them fairly, treat them well. I find that, and I'm going to talk about our industry for a minute. And being around Alex and the company that he's part of, it seems like they do a great job of taking care of the folks they're around. But I think after 2 years of COVID, there's not a lot learned by our industry, especially the live event industry. I can't speak for production too much, but live event industry, we're back now, but we're so, as you said, eager to get back to doing business that we overlooking, you know, taking care of the folks. I think if you take care of your employees, take care of temporary hires, they're always going to want to come back and work for you. Um, there's times when I have my own crews and I take care of them from top to bottom. I'm going to go so far as to say, whenever I'm doing a project, I know the guys that I want to attract for that particular project. So I'm going to ask them what their day rate is. I try to get them their day rate and then go from there. So that makes everyone happy, because you don't want anyone jumping ship on you in the middle. So securing folks by giving them the day rate and what they're worth. Um, just being a good citizen to the folks that you work with. And a lot of times when I do contractual work, that's not reciprocated, by the folks you're working around, because obviously there's times I could be working for a staffing company and you're going to a venue that really don't know you. And that's a lot of my issues right now, to be honest. If you want me to be honest with you, is that I go to a lot of job sites now and folks might not know me, because a lot of the industry is new now, Tony. We might be back in the live event world, but a lot of the folks, the old heads, the OGs that were part of the live event world 2 years ago are now gone. So everything is new now. So you almost have to you got to prove yourself to the new folks that's coming in. So um, I hope I answered his question, but definitely you want to be a good citizen to folks and try to, you never want to put your ideas or your will on people, but try to see where they're at and try to work with them, and show them the ropes of the industry that we could make a better way for the things that we do on a daily basis, if that makes sense.
Thank you for that, George. I was just wondering, is there a shortage of people in the video production, streaming, in person, hybrid working space?
Absolutely. And that's going to go back. It's very strange. It's a very strange place right now. This is just me being on office hours for 2 years, so I think it's really different for a lot of us maybe now that went back to doing in person. I don't understand it, but I know the 2 years the 2 years we were in the pandemic has been hard. But there's a lot of folks that came back that absolutely just sat at home. And this is not speaking down about folks in the industry, but it just seems like folks just sat at home and didn't do a thing. They didn't try to upgrade their skills over that downtime. I know it's hard, but a lot of us came to office hours. There was places to go. There was things to learn. So a lot of folks left the industry, and now what's happening? Like I said, May was for me was busy, and that's not because there wasn't people available. There wasn't technically sound people available to fill those hybrid positions. So I would say yes.
Okay. Um, wow. So are you having a shortage in terms of putting together teams?
Um, Teams are being put together, but again, I might be part of that team, but the rest of the team, you might have a certain percentage of that team is solid, and it's not necessarily a negative, but you find yourself doing more work when you don't have that team that could meet the expectations of every position of the event. So I don't know it's necessary a big shortage, but there is. I'm hearing that. I'm seeing that. There's a lot of folks that we're doing a lot of hybrids. So there's a need right now for folks that could do the simple things like, I know this might sound simple, but we have a lot of things like F1 pearls that we're being used a lot in the industry right now for live streaming, for recordings. So a lot of folks I'm seeing coming back and asking me like, what is a pearl? What does that do? So it's kind of, I mean, again, I try to keep on keeping myself relevant, but it's kind of strange
What
for
is a pearl?
what is a pearl.
What is a
So
pearl? I have to ask because I don't know. I
so the
don't know,
F1 pearl
George.
is just another device like maybe the it could stream SRT, RTMP. It can record.
Okay.
You could do pips inside of it. So I wouldn't expect you necessarily to know what it is, Tony. But we've talked about it in office hours briefly, spikes here and there. But
Okay.
Jonas and Tucker and Guy, who's around here, is using that a lot right now. But there wasn't a whole. I don't think there was a lot of development going on over the 2 year downtime, and I don't want to get too much into this, but I blame a lot of that in the overall AV industry also. I always feel like the AV industry is letting itself down, and I'm just going to say this: the live event industry is very segmented. There's a live event industry which is the AV companies, and then there's the freelancers. So I think there needs to be a lot more training going on, or a lot more insight on behalf of the AV companies in getting all the rest of the folks up to speed, and the vendors also. I think like the Black Magics of the world, F1 Pearls, could do a lot more of getting simulators online so folks could really go look at these devices and really get themselves educated. So there's still some work left to do on behalf of the AV industry, vendor industry, and so forth.
So I have two questions. So the
Hmm.
first question is, do you think that some of those people could be directed to office hours to get some of that training that needs to be taught? And then my second question
Hmm.
is, have you had the opportunity to work with some office hour members on projects? And is that something that you would want to continue to do?
Oh, for sure. Definitely work with office hours folks. There's a lot of folks in the DC area from office hours. There's Greg Gibson, a whole lot of them. We haven't been able to collaborate on any projects. I'm sure that's going to happen sooner or later. Um, as far as the training for folks in office hours, I'm being honest with you. The same folks that are back in the industry after 2 years and came back to where they left off is the same folks I was telling about office hours 2 years ago, or a year and a half, or a year and months into office hours on all the forums. So I'm just letting you know that the information was out there during the pandemic that hey, this is going on. This is what's going to happen after this is over with. This is going to be the need. So the information was out there.
So what I'm hearing you say is that a lot of them have stayed pat. They didn't try to improve or increase their skills. They did not take the opportunity to even look at an office hours or anything similar to embrace learning more and getting better with the one of the things that office hours does is that it is doing what it can to be cutting edge and push the envelope. And what I seem to be hearing you say is that a lot of people who were in the industry 2 years ago have made the decision that they were just going to stay pat.
For sure. And to be fair, let me just add to that that the folks like me, that the folks that I run with, or let's say that I run with in the industry, they've kept up on the technology. They've kept up on Zoom and so forth, but not everyone. So what's happening now? All those folks that have kept up and doing hybrids over that period of time from the AV industry that flipped. So once COVID happened, I was able to flip and continue doing virtuals because I had already been live streaming and so forth. So all the folks that were able to flip and started doing what we're doing, or some part of it and hybrid and so forth, they're so busy right now. It's hard to get. There's only a handful or a portion of us that know to do this the right way. So what's happening now? There's a greater need for folks that understand hybrid, that know how to execute it. So that's the problem you run into right now in the AV industry.
Okay. All right. Well, I would say to anybody who's watching and is wrestling with this, tune into office hours. We had a great conversation today about Meta, Unreal Engine. It was a very, very interesting conversation. I'll be honest, I didn't understand a lot of it, but I can tell you that it is definitely the future. Um, so I encourage you, if you don't know about office hours, to check it out. We have a question from Guy Cochran, and this question is, how has the video industry changed since you started?
Hmm. Oh boy. Um, Guy, I would say that obviously the technology, man. You know, you've been in this industry for a long time. If you had to do A/B editing on beta decks, so
Hmm.
obviously the DV cam, the PD-150s, the PD-170s, Sony PD-170s. So DV cam tapes, DSR-11. I can't believe I'm still remembering the name of these devices. The DSR-25. So um, being able to, I think sometimes we're at I don't complain a lot. Like when folks say, "Oh, Final Cut is terrible, Premiere Pro is terrible," or this I edited on beta cam tapes. I edited on DV cam. I understand AB roll. So when I see where we are now, where we were 20 years ago, doing reading back and forth on tapes, putting in and out points, you know the industry has really evolved rapidly. If you look at and Guy, I hope I'm not going too far off. If you look at the announcements from DJI today, they just keep upping the game, man. So the industry is going so fast. you know it's hard to keep up on it, but definitely we're in a good place right now where everyone could just elevate. You could elevate your game But again, it's just, are you gonna? And I'm 53 now, so there's only so much more I can do. I mean, I'm keeping up with it, but you have to pace yourself also. So I definitely think, guy, over the past 20 years, we have gone from this tape-based editing to NLE to digital cameras, and I think we know Black Magic has made some great inroads. I got the first Black Magic camera, and then we got the big the monster Black Magic camera, and now we have the all of us are using pocket cameras. So definitely the technology is moving at a fast pace. We're not going to be able to keep up on all of it, but I think by just office hours is back to office hours again. It's such a condense. It's vast, but at the same time it's condensed into 2 hours every day. So and then it all goes on YouTube for you to watch later. So I think that's definitely a good way of keeping up with it. And it's an easy watch. I come home at night and I could go through an episode. If I don't necessarily want to watch the first hour, I'll jump to the second hour if it was something important that I really wanted to watch. So guy, I know went in circles there, but the industry has definitely changed for the better over the past couple of years.
Thank you, George, for sharing that. Dr. Clark is back with another question, and his question is: if Kim Burns were to do a documentary on the life of George Kennedy Jr., what would the title be and why?
Wow. Chris Clark. What would the title be and why? George in Motion. Um, I think I'm constantly moving. You know, I wouldn't tell and this is a conversation with Tony Mobley, so I wouldn't tell you. I can't sit there and tell you life is not stressful. It is. I'm a stressful person. It's part of the DNA makeup, if per se. I think I'm a great thinker, so I'm always moving, even in my sleep, Tony. So um, George in motion, man, and I'm always moving, and I'm trying to figure out what's next. I might not always get there, but I'm constantly trying to keep the path moving.
Yeah, I will say that again, thank you so much for being with me tonight.
Mhm.
We have had several different conversations, and it's very, very difficult to get you on because of because of how busy you are.
Mhm.
And so, and I know you had to do a little bit of a sacrifice to be here with me tonight. So I appreciate you, and again, I want to say thank you.
No,
And
let
I'm
me
going,
let me just
I'm
say,
going to,
Tony, my and I'm not cutting you off. My duty was to be here with you tonight. I mean, I I'm working. It's busy, and like I told you, I have the project going on in the yard. But June 15th, that's what life is all about, right? If you make a commitment, you have to kind of hold it. That last time that we tried to do this and we couldn't, is that I really couldn't do it. But mom's is coming in town tomorrow and there's a lot going on around me. There's things going on in the yard today, but I said, okay, guys, we need to stop because I'm going on a conversation with Tony Mobley tonight. It's not changing. I need to be done by a certain time because I need to focus on what I need to do. So I'm happy to be here with you because it's all about this. I'm really into my community, and I've said it before, and I don't mind saying it here. I'm into my community. I believe in it, so I'm here to share with you and to support you.
thank you, sir. I appreciate it. And I also appreciate your advice when I asked you before we started a conversation, I asked you about nervousness and fear
Mhm.
because even after 1 year of conversation with Tony Mobley, I still get nervous. And until we actually get started with the
Mhm.
conversation, I'm dealing with the nerves. And when you told me that it doesn't go away after 30 years, I said, oh my goodness. So
No, it
uh,
doesn't go away. And coming on here because there's times when I'm going to sit in your chair. When I sit in your chair, so I understand it. So it's thank you for giving me the 30 minutes on the front end also because it allowed me to relax a little bit. So it's all good. There's nothing wrong with fear, man.
all right, thank you, sir. We have a question from Douglas Carmichael. And the question is: do you see the Mobley process and the Belfast method making an impact in the broader industry?
Yes. Tony has been a year into it, so you get 50 episodes just celebrated a year into it. I mean, that's I don't want to say it's unheard of, but and I think Alex always says this, to have substantive conversations, that's hard. But I'm having a conversation with you right now, and you're allowing me to have a conversation with you and to be who I am. It's not forced. And there's questions coming in, but those are folks I know. And even if it wasn't folks I know, it's still an easy conversation to have with you. So you're easy to have a conversation with. So I think this is working for you. Not everyone is able to do this. As far as the Belfast method, that's a whole different animal. I mean, I love it. You know, wh- Office hours, the folks that's involved breaking so many ground, and I mean, I just want to say to the community, I, I see you every single day. I might not come on office hours every day, but I see you on LinkedIn. Tucker, I see you. Jonas, I see you. I see what you guys are doing. So, you know, it might not be happening for me at the moment. I'm doing my own thing. It's happening for Tony, but you've seen these folks doing all this stuff, and you can't feel but proud. So the Belfast method is gonna come again. They're gonna be doing new things sooner or later. Tony Mobley process gonna continue on. We hope and pray to God that you keep healthy and you're able to do this. But I think a whole lot of this is needed on a daily basis. And there's gonna be other things that are gonna come too that's gonna keep what we started with office hours going, and it's going to branch off into different things. So to everyone that's doing what they're doing, Jeff Kitley, Guy, the whole 9 yards, I can't call everyone's name here, but I see all of us. You're doing your thing, whatever you're doing, but you're doing it, and office hours has helped, whether you say it or not. I'm going to say it, office hours have helped this 53-year-old who have 4 years in the Navy, 4 years of college. I'm not afraid to say that, it's education. That's what life is, right? So I'm just being open to it on a daily basis. As much as the world is stressful right now, that's what you have to do.
Yeah, and I'll share what I've been sharing in other conversations. So Tim McCullough and I were having a exchange in text, and he was saying, look at it, office hours as it doesn't cost money, but it does cost money because you have to spend and invest in hardware and software, and you are paying tuition to learn at the office hour school, and that's what we do. And so anybody who's listening, it does not actually cost to pay the tuition, but the tuition is in fact paid by acquiring the things that you need so that you can play. And I look at this as playing and also learning, and I love it. And I one of the things that I've learned is that there's so much that I don't know, but I'm really enjoying having this opportunity to learn. And Douglas, thank you so much for your question. Um, the the community is also working on some other projects for those people who are artists and really want to know about being able to break down the walls of being able to perform. You really want to find out about the Belfast Method and some of the other digital concerts that the office hours community is doing. And I'm just going to just leave it there. So if you're interested, you need to do a little due diligence and check out some of the office hours programming. It's on YouTube. Thank you so much for that. Roscoe Jones is back again. What type of music would accompany accompany your life story.
Oh boy, Roscoe. um, I don't know. Obviously, reggae music is my first love. Um, I think one of the great things about, and I like to let folks know sometimes because being from the Caribbean, people think about the Caribbean, and I'm from Guyana. Guyana is in South America, by the way, because I know sometimes folks think that's in Africa. I grew up in my household. We had a phonogram, RCA, with a little dog. So Roscoe, I was always exposed to a vast amount of music, even being from the Caribbean. So jazz. I love the opera. So I love some Bob Marley. So a little Bob Marley in my life story. Hopefully, I could get the folks to release some of the music, so it could be my life story. And some opera. I honestly listen when some days I just want to put on some opera and just I love Pavarotti, Andrea Bocelli. So a little touch of all of those flavors into my life story, Roscoe. I think it'll work just fine. I love Pavarotti and Andrea Bocelli. So yes.
Fantastic. Thank you for the great question, Roscoe. Laura from Texas has a question. As I continue to grow and support office hours and other projects, what advice can you give me when pulling together an all volunteer crew? And how do I know how many for what positions?
Laura, I'm just gonna say I'm gonna say this first. I remember, and it doesn't always happen to me all the time, but I remember this pastor saying a few years ago. I was in Philadelphia doing a conference. Work with the people you love. So first, find a crew that's gonna be able to gel with you. Anytime you could have just one person in that crew that's just difficult, and it could make your life miserable. So the volunteer crew they have to understand also that they're there to volunteer. That's the biggie. They have to know they're there to volunteer. Make sure there's folks that you could gel with. You're not gonna know offhand if they have your personality or not, but make sure you could at least gel with them. Um, it's always to good to fill more positions than you need. Have a few extras. So I would say that. So if you have a position that needs 10, I would have at least 15 to make sure that something happens, they could fall back. But work with the folks you want to work with. Make sure that volunteer crew is folks that you're gonna be able to go to war with, per se, Navy terminology, and survive. So that's what I would say. And while you're asking that question, Laura, I believe it or not, I think about you all the time for some reason. Every time I'm doing something and it's got a great flashing light and it's distracting. I can remember one time I did something and Laura said in the comments, you should give a warning when you're doing that. So she's always in my head when I'm getting ready to do something that like a big flashing light or wherever the case may be. So that's just a little thing I wanted to say to her. Thank you for that advice. Not to there's folks in could cause seizures and so forth. I know I'm going off topic, but I just wanted to thank her while I have her here for that piece of advice that she gave me a few months back.
And I would just add that Laura is an advocate for those who
Hmm.
have any type of disability.
Yeah.
And she's a wonderful person who has been a major supporter of Conversation with Tony Mobley. So I want to say in front of everyone on this 1 year anniversary, thank you, Laura, so much for all the work that you do and keeping us honest in terms of making sure that we are what we do, that we are being advocates for everybody and inclusion. So thank you, Laura, for that. Guy Cochran is back and he says, what do you see as the future of remote/cloud production?
Hmm. That's a great question, guy. So I think so what I'm seeing on the ground right now is we're back and we're not back. So there's a lot of hybrid going on. You know, we're doing meetings where we have to bring in remotes. And Guy, I think what's gonna happen, there's gonna be, like Alex talked about, Office Hours talked about a few days back, the digital first world, remote cloud production, and then there's gonna be hybrid, part of the live event production. So I think definitely remote and cloud production is gonna have its place. Is it gonna take over in person? I don't think so, because there's two segments of the industry. I don't want to say fighting right now, but in a sense they are. There's folks fighting for dear life to have live events back on the ground. You know, some of it is working and some of it is not. So I think remotes have a great future. We just have to keep on pushing the boundaries, and Office Hours is doing that. And there's a segment of our industry that's doing that, and more of us have to really learn it. I mean, I again, like I mentioned earlier, Guy, I miss, obviously you have to take care of your family, so I miss being in the office hour of realm right now. And I'm still dibbling in AWS, but I wish I could be more on there right now. But you gotta take care of your family. So it's this balance I'm trying to find right now with doing the remote and cloud production. Um, I don't have a lot of clientele left. During pandemic, I was busy doing remote production, but since then everyone has gone back to doing in person. So I think they're both gonna have their place, Guy. But I see there's this little war going on right now from what I'm seeing. I could speak to that from being on the ground and know what's going on in the cloud also. That there's a push by AV companies and event planning companies to keep in person, doing in person on the ground. So I think the future is there for remote productions, and I think Office Hours is pushing the boundaries. Obviously, Alex is got a head pushing that. We're gonna see where Zoom goes in the next couple of weeks, or hopefully we'll see what happens in July, or towards August, what Zoom does. But I think the future is great for it and it's bright, and I'm hoping to be part of that, because this 53-year-old body is not gonna be able to sustain the pounding that takes in the live industry.
I'm curious, George, do you
Hmm.
think that the shift would be more palatable to those in the business world if they were able to make more money, if the profits were better, if there was a shift to virtual instead of in person, if they were actually able to recognize that there is more money to be made by doing something virtual as opposed to in person, would that be the thing that would make them shift, you think?
I think so. If the potential was there to do more business in the virtual world, I think there would be a shift. But from what I've seen, being back on the ground now doing in person, there is Fortune 500 companies that need to have in person meetings. There's no, they need to have their people fly from all across the globe, local and beyond. They need to be come and do in person meetings. That's going to continue to happen. And then there's groups that are going to need to have those virtuals and cloud production. It's an entire industry that's being formed right now around remote production and cloud production. That's probably going to take a while, and I think we discussed it in Office Hours a whole lot. That's This is going to continue on to develop over the next couple of years. But I think I think to answer your question a little more rounded is, you're going to see a lot of associations, I think, continue to do cloud production, because a lot of folks don't want to travel anymore, Tony. And I think membership based associations, they're going to continue to do cloud productions, and they're going to find a way to continue to hold on to their base. Because, and again, like I said, a lot of what I'm seeing is the Fortune 500 companies coming in to do their meetings. There's a lot of associations coming back, and medical events coming in, but certain events can be done in the cloud. A lot of medical events that have physical training, meaning whether they're bringing in cadavers, whether they're bringing in animals to do their training, cadaver animals, and so forth. Those are going to continue to happen physically. So it's going to be it's going to be at least another year or so or two to figure out where exactly the cloud production, remote production world is going to be. But I think it's here to stay.
I would just add to what you just said about the medical community. I
Hmm.
think Dr. Geiger in Cape Town, South Africa, is sharing with us in other conversations and in office hours about how they are doing. He is actually doing training of physicians, and he's helping them actually get better in a virtual world, and a lot of them have and I wish I wish he was here so that he could share with us both about how there is at least in Cape Town, South Africa, the medical community that he is working with has made the transition to want to do things virtually. And so I was just thinking a lot of times if like today, where there was this conversation around Unreal and Meta and virtual reality and those kinds of things, a lot of the actual in-person medical examinations and
Hmm.
instruction can be done with a simulation. And so that is something to think about. And also those same type of applications can be applied to regular school settings as well. And so I think we may not be as far away from those kinds of things happening. I just think that what you have shared with us in terms of some of the larger companies wanting to continue to have the in person has more to do with, and I might be completely wrong with this, but it may have more to do with the infrastructure
Hmm.
that they have had in place for however many years. And it's, as Alex would say, sometimes it's difficult to turn that large ship in the middle of the ocean because it's used to doing things a certain way. And I think that that might have a lot more to do with it. But I also think that when it becomes financially beneficial, that we will probably see a shift.
Yeah.
So thank you, George, for your comments, and
Sure.
Guy, thank you so much for that question. That is a question that we could probably spend a lot more time on.
Hmm.
So thank you for that, Guy. Roscoe Jones is back again. He said, "Can you speak a bit to how it's working in DC as we get as we got the is it tiny taste of CineGear with the president's creating roadblocks and plenty of security detours and slowdowns. Have you had to work under such restrictions?"
Oh, I'm always having to do security checks and you know background checks to president. You never know who's going to be coming in at any given time. But yes, I'm in DC. That's expected that you're going to have some politician coming through. You're gonna have the president move into DC at any given time. But DC is a very it's a very busy environment. It's constantly moving, I would say. So it's a lot of fun, and there's good days and bad days. But for the most part, work is work. So you have to be able to adapt to every single day. Every single day I walk out the door, I know there's a possibility I'm gonna have to adapt to something new or something indifferent. So that's the way I approach it. DC, but Roscoe, yes, there's always the president is always on the move, or politician, foreign dignitary. So there's always a motorcade at some point of the day.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, George. Douglas Carmichael is back again. He says IMAX is moving to live events like concerts slash conventions in theaters with IMAX Live. Do you see events in theaters as a growth market?
I don't know. What is the big I can't remember the promotion company that does live. It's right at the tip of my tongue. But anyway, I mean, I don't know that I want to go see a live event in a movie theater or a live concert. I think and we have this conversation all the time, right? Of we're getting to the point now where we are putting up big screens in our homes and being able to get the same kind of content. When I'm done here, I'm gonna go watch Obi-Wan Kenobi under 65. So I don't see it may take off. There might be those folks that want to go out to and watch an IMAX concert, but I don't I don't know where that's gonna that growth is gonna be. It's gonna I'm sure it's gonna grow for some folks, but I think also the whole theater system needs a revamping, after the pandemic to get folks back in those seats.
Are you on the current episode of Kenobi?
Yes, I am, Tony.
Okay. Thank you, Douglas, for that great question. Um, how do how to help events to continue to get better? Is there a way to help events get better?
There is, I think, and I've said this before, and again, hopefully, I don't know if any of my friends in DC or the area, but I think we all have to be, and this is for overall, for everyone overall, Tony. I think we all have to be vested in the industries that we work in. I'm just gonna put it that way, right? Because again, I talked about the folks that are, for some folks, I'm just gonna say live events or live jobs or AV jobs are just a dollar. I think as soon as you try to start treating anything as just a dollar, you're going to run into problems. I think we need to invest in our industry, invest in ourselves, have an investment. Like I think there's a lot of folks in office hours is vested in office hours, right? I take that same approach when I go to work every day. I am vested in making sure that the event that I'm charged with switching, or if I'm doing the records, if I'm doing playback, anything that I do a 100% job, I try to do the best of my ability to execute it and not have blaring mistakes. I mean, you're going to have mishaps, Tony, but to have blaring mistakes because you don't know how to put PowerPoint into slideshow by hitting a hotkey or punching up a number in PowerPoint to jump to the next slide that's being called up. I think I wouldn't say you shouldn't be part of the industry, but you need to know that. The simple thing, if you're going to be charged with doing a position, if you're going to be charged with doing a position, Tony, at least know what you're doing 80%. It's not that hard, right? So we have to be vested in the industry that we're working in. And in our case, is the production and the live event industry.
Would you say that it's important? I already know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Mhm.
Would you say that it's important to invest in your professional learning aside from being paid to work on stuff?
Absolutely. Um, there's no secret, right? We're back from COVID. I've been able to increase my day rate just from simply what I learned over the 2 years in office hours. I mean, that's probably what's going to happen anyway, but there's a demand for certain skilled folks right now. And I probably was going to raise my day rate anyway, but based on what I've learned, I mean, you can't learn all of this knowledge we've learned in office hours and then go back out and say, you know what, I'm going to make the same rate that I made. If you have the clientele calling for those particular segments or part of what we're doing now, you have to bump your rate, right? I've been able to do that easily coming out of COVID. So, and then there's folks that are asking for those rates, and folks are looking at them like, but if you already have been out there before and folks know what you're doing, it's going to be easy for them to say, you know what, I'm going to give you that day rate because I know you know what you're doing. So to answer your question, I think you have to help yourself, to help this industry. Don't just treat it as another dollar.
Okay. Thank you, George.
Mm.
Um, can we talk about different applications you use for virtual production?
Oh boy. Um, Obviously Zoom is my the number one go-to. I'm using AWS. vmix vmix has become such a monster, right? Over COVID, and a lot of it's being used a lot in the production world right now, coming out of COVID. um the Afro and Pearl, I'm using a lot of the Pearl right now because they're a few weeks ago they announced the availability of SRT, so I'm able to use a lot of that now. So pretty much Zoom is my go-to and vmix in virtual production right now, with a lot of a few other tools on the ground. I'm a big Black Magic guy, so I've I'm all Black Magic. You know, if Black Magic started selling socks, I'd probably buy it too. But a lot, um, a lot of Black Magic Stream Deck. So basically everything that we use on a daily basis in office hours, just on a larger scale. So in my personal kit, you know, I try to, even though the company that you're working for should have those things, I travel with my own network switch, a Stream Deck, a monitor, a Blackmagic monitor. So I travel with my own tools to make sure I could execute my job when I go on site. So those are the
Okay.
applications that I'm using right now on my laptops. I try to carry most of Apple range of software. You know, Switch by Telestream to playback videos if I need to cut things down. For playback right now, I'm using MIDI, so there's a couple of good things in my kit, and I see a lot of things are going on now in the cloud production world. So I'm looking forward to continuing on and seeing what's going on with NDI. So that's going to be the next big push to really expand on NDI as we move forward.
Thank you, George, for that.
Yes,
Douglas
sir.
Carmichael is back, and he says soft music has been used in hospitals and other medical settings to aid in healing for many years. Could you see well chosen video content also beneficial as well?
Sure. Um, I think I like to watch a lot of ocean based. Obviously, I don't I don't meditate as a lot as I used to before, but at one point in my life, I was doing a lot of meditation. So I love the moving image and ocean and meditation music. So I think Douglas, there's always going to be a good mesh for video content and music to help heal. It's already there. It's just being able to choose the right music in the form of meditation music. And if you go to a lot of the meditation apps, they've already got a good set of good video content with good meditation music. But you also have to choose whatever works for you.
Wow. Well, thank you, Douglas, for that great question. And we're getting down to the end now for our last couple of questions. So, what is next for you, George?
What is next for me? I'm 53 now, so I'm by no means coming up to the end of life. Even though I think about that a lot. For some reason, I think about that a lot. Not a lot lately, but I the world is a very strange place right now. So that end could come 20 years from now or abruptly. Obviously, I don't want. That's not something that I want or want to think about. But what's next for me is just continue on the path. I can't stress enough that I love this path office hours is on the cloud. This is for Guy, the remote production world. As you get older, you have to find that off ramp, of what you're going to be doing next. The live event world is a grind, so I see cloud production, remote production as a path where I could do things and make life a little bit more easier. But again, there's an investment there, right? Because right now I'm back out doing the grind in the AV world. I can't be in office hours every day. I can't be in front of my desk like I did during the pandemic. I couldn't go anywhere then, but now I have to really go out and take care of the family. The work that I was doing during the pandemic, I had those clientele, but those clientels are gone back to the regular in person meetings. So just finding my niche, Tony. Just finding where you need to be. I mean, you know, at 53, you know, some of us are where we need to be at 53. Some of us are still trying to figure out the path, and that's okay. You know, it's hard sometimes to think about it. Oh man, I'm 53. What am I still doing? But you know, it's okay. I have to tell myself mentally that it's still okay. That you know, you could be. It's 53. You could still be trying to find your way in this world on the path. Just continue being a good citizen.
That's it. That's it.
Yep.
Thank you, George, for that. And the final question, you're speaking to the world. What do you want them to know?
Um, I grew up in Guyana. You know, I'm a Caribbean kid. Just continue to take care of yourselves, man. You know, men and women, or just continue to take care of yourselves. It's difficult out there right now, and you know, I was talking to a friend of mine from Trinidad today. As I said to him, you know, there's some of us that you know, and it's okay to continue on like life is okay, but life is not. There's people really hurting in the world. There's people really having a hard time. You know, you have to continue living, right? But at the same time, you can acknowledge what's going on in Ukraine or elsewhere in the world. There's a whole lot of things, other things going on in Africa, the Caribbean, all over the globe, right? Just continue to take care of each other because, again, with the pace of we're going right now, things can come to an end. I don't want my end to happen right now, but there's times when I'm out, but I'm driving home from work and there's somebody raging. Just continue to take care of each other. And that, you know, for me, that means being a good citizen when I'm driving to and from work because I want to get to where I'm going and I want to get back home to my family. But there's people seriously out there not trying to make it for some reason to the destination and back. And you see it. And hopefully, if I'm that's one of you, you know, hopefully you could take into consideration the rest of us and just continue to take care of each other or try to as best as we could. Right, Tony?
Right. Thank you so much, George, for this great conversation, and I do mean great conversation.
Yes, sir.
I'm thankful to those members of the office hour community to ask their great questions, and so it's been a great time here. And as David Paskin said last week, this was fun, and this was fun again, George. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me on. We made it to an hour and a half, and thank you for the community to continue to support. And just know that I see you all every single day on office hours, and I'm always bummed that I can't be there. And when I'm at work, I'm sticking in my earbuds just to listen in a little bit, see your faces, and I'm glad that you all are doing okay because I see you.
Thanks again. Thanks again, George. Special thanks to Kimberly Mobley, Ron Mobley, Global Family and Friends, Alex Lindsay, Office Hour members, DVE Store, Liminal Entertainment Technologies, Byte Hive, VDO360.com, ApprovedLoan.com, Cloud Bedrock LLC, Ken Jordan, Jonas Tatel, Aaron Huslich, Cherrick Cheetah, David Brady, Marcus Lee Folk, Richard Lavery, Chris Fenwick, Manolo Lozano, Jeffrey Powers, Bo Cordell, Mickey McAchore, Hasmut Geijar, Doug Moeller, Laura Thompson, Ryan Chan, Dennis Champion Walker, Roscoe Jones, George Butters, Joshua Menden, Danielle Maxwell, Conversation with Tony Mobley, producer, Clylock Lopez Waterman. Thank you again, George E. Kennedy Jr., for our great conversation today and for doing the work you do. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Tony.
Next week, we are going to have a conversation with educator Mr. Kent Kersey, PhD, and we will have him next week. Looking forward to that conversation. Again, thank you all so much. We hope to continue having conversations. We will We have scheduled educators, mental health, filmmakers, musicians, and other creators. We want to have conversations that are interesting to people and for people. If you like what we're doing, please like and subscribe. Thank you so much. Take care. Good night. And we will see you on Conversations with Tony Mobley next week. Take care, everyone. Good night.